Hey everyone, this is Write Once, Read Many. Talking about chapters 12.1 and 12.2 today. Just getting the link out there. Okay. With the link out there, I am going to start the speed draw. Get to see the 12.1. It's the paper boxes being made. The little cubes, the fly in a box. And I love it because bugs. 2 plus 4 times 5. Just got to work, so can only stay for like 5 minutes. Yep. Hey Vale. Hey Greg. Also, I think it's funny that, she's watching the YouTube tutorial. And that's captured in the art. Yeah. Don't get as much 2 plus 4 times 5 time today, do we? But either way, I'll do the audience participation reminder. For this week, it's, do you think there's a better way the Undersiders could have acted in the meeting to advance their goals? So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what people think. As for the themes of this, these 2 chapters, I felt there was like a strong theme of like Taylor dealing with toxic masculinity and Nate getting in her way. And it's like obviously embodied by the dad in 12.1 and kind of Brian's response to Taylor generally in 12.1 as well. Vale says, can we dedicate today to terrible puns so I can call it Orbagami without feeling ashamed? Whatever you gotta justify to yourself to get that into the world, it's gonna be Orbagami for this whenever you build a paper cube using the bug labor of bugs you control with your mind. It's a very niche art form. Right now we only know of one person who does it, but what can you do? But the toxic masculinity, of course, continues into 12.2 when they're at the meeting. I think that it's mostly embodied by Hookwolf and Skidmark, but nobody like pushes back on it, I guess. I feel like the other groups are at best neutral, and they're able to sort of just use weird hostility and like the fragile egos of the people around them to like manipulate everyone. Orbagami. Vale says she isn't watching the tutorial, she's editing it for upload. Yeah. Okay. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, or I don't know, Buggergami. I'm gonna get British cancelled for saying their fuck word. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, I don't know, that one kind of bugs me. Oh boy. Let's not get too lost in the weeds with the bug puns just yet. We have the whole show to do that. I can tell that 2 plus 4 times 5 has got to get them all out now before work. So I mean, you get a pass to unload all the bug puns right now. Everybody else, you got to sprinkle them in. So where were we? The other thing, was thinking of another theme that I didn't write down, but I forgot what it was. So only the one we wrote down, toxic masculinity. And I guess we'll move on past the themes section. In 12.1, I got a head start on the stuff from Victoria, or from Vic, but it's a bit unhinged at points with some capitalization that I will be pronouncing as it was written on the page, because I think it's funnier to just ham it up. So, you know, unhinged. No, not that bad. Hey Vic. No, I like it. I love it. In fact, I just wanted to warn people. I will be saying things like, what? So you got that to look forward to. Starting off, Taylor uses several beetles, as appearing here, to assemble a paper craft while Charlotte and Sierra look on, creeped out. Taylor says she stopped believing in shouldn'ts, such as bugs shouldn't act that way. When Charlotte pushes back that Taylor thinks there's no right or wrong, Taylor says that there's always going to be reasons that doing something wrong becomes excusable. Charlotte immediately asks about situations in which rape is okay, and Taylor agrees that some things are never excusable, as long as that doesn't apply to her bugs. Taylor completes the last step to assemble the paper cube that her bugs are building. It's a box that will contain a bug, not only for tracking, but to alert of emergencies by using the box to crush and kill the bug inside. Greg includes on the list another thing that's never excusable, like murdering a baby, for instance. No one, could ever find a reason to do that. Oh no! Vic said sometimes the baby deserves it. Oh boy. Well, anyway, moving on from that, Taylor explains some other use cases for the box that she'll be testing out with Charlotte and Sierra. She's tasking the two with going out and gathering info and needs from people in her territory. It's like a, general, what do you call it? She's taking a census, but she's just sending two girls out to do it. Taylor moves on to payment, which Charlotte had been too shy to ask about. They'll both be making $250 a day. Given that Taylor's bugs don't catch them slacking. Oh yeah, she reminds them that she can tell when they're not working. And she's like, don't be freaked out, but I can tell if you're slacking off. And then, so that's around $31 an hour, which translates to around $41 an hour in our Lord's year of 2023. So generous. And also, not pointed out here, but as it's pointed out, it's under the table, so it's tax-free. So it's way better than $41 an hour, really. It's more like you'd have to multiply out. I mean, I've never paid less than 20% on my taxes, so let's say it's got to be at least $50 an hour of current day money. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah, Greg says half again as much, to be honest, because it's not taxed. Yeah, it's probably even bigger than I'm thinking. I was just giving a conservative estimate or whatever, a small c conservative, I'm not sure of the numbers kind of thing. But yeah, it's probably $60 an hour. So Taylor's paying good. Vale says she knows when you're sleeping, she knows when you're awake, she knows if you've been bad or good. So be good, for goodness sake. Oh Lord. 2 plus 4 times 5 gets in micro manager because bugs are small. Okay, my shift is starting. Time for me to bug off. Bye-bye. I look forward to hearing what you have to say to us in the general chat as you listen back to this later. It's always a treat. I I really think it's funny. And it gives us a chance to basically have the chat interaction again with you as a group. So that's nice. Anyway, though. Greg says he can't listen or he wouldn't be productive. Oh yeah. I don't even remember if I mentioned it before, but like 2 weeks ago I got a bee tattoo. I probably said it because I had a stream the day afterward, but anyway, I keep looking down at it and being like, oh, I actually have this. So, let's see here. Taylor lets them know that this is all contingent on the ladies joining her MLM. What? You want us to recruit? Taylor says she's looking for young, able-bodied workers, and they'll be earning commission when they do a good job. But she also mentions this is not a competition. Before the girls can head out, Charlotte asks Taylor for a mask that she can wear. Taylor isn't super pleased as she had hoped they'd give a human face to her bug. Actually this says they'd be the human to her bug. Yep. She had hoped they'd be the human to her bug, but it's totally fair for them to want to hide their identities. Luckily, Taylor has a couple first draft masks for her teammates, costumes, that she can spare. As Charlotte and Sierra go door to door, Taylor watches them with her bugs and works on the costumes. Quote here, "A lot of people were ignoring the knocks. I let them be. After a few days, if they were still ignoring my minions' attempts to talk to them, I'd maybe give them a bit of a nudge to leave them a message, or leave them a message using my bugs." After some time, Charlotte gives her a call, which Taylor eerily answers with a, "Yes, Charlotte?" Charlotte tries to get past the creepy feeling and tells Taylor that there are 2 families packing up to leave because of a rat problem. Sure enough, Taylor's bugs sense hundreds of rats. Hundreds. As she hurriedly gets dressed in her costume to head out, she sends venomous insects to start attacking the rats. She goes pretty all out. It's pretty, Vic says, I pulled the quote because it's so cringy. Yeah. Like the part about them being her minions attempts to talk to them. Or anyway. While Taylor's running to the rat house, Gru texts and asks to come by. She sends him the address of where she's heading to. Taylor thinks of herself that this rat-killing business isn't a fast job, though it is completed by the time she arrives at the house within 8 minutes. Greg says, yeah, I'm surprised the family stuck around to watch the bugs eat the rats. When a swarm arrived, I would have fucking booked it. Vic says, not that. Her harassing people with bugs for not answering the door. Oh, I mean, she's like a total authoritarian right now. She's like giving the people what they want, but if they step out of line, she's gonna like cover them in a bug pile. And so, I mean, from her perspective, she's like, answering the door is the least of your worries. So yeah, I mean, it is cringe, but she is a cringe authoritarian right now. When Taylor arrives, instead of being greeted with gratefulness, she's greeted with toxic masculinity. A dad of the family starts immediately chewing her out and that she's infesting their homes while they're literally trying to move out. Charlotte tries to defend Taylor, but she stops her. The man drew himself up a fraction. No reply, huh? I'd punch you right here, right now, if I thought you'd give me a fair, no powers fight. Irritated, I told him, count backwards from 100. If you still want to when you're done, I'll give you that fight. Yeah. She, I mean, I think it would be a mistake for him to try and fight in the way that he would only end up looking even more foolish and emasculated. But I guess she does that with the barb anyway, because it's like, I don't know. It kind of works either way. She really gets him, but she is bad at calming people down. It's she's really escalating the situation in a way with him, even though she's telling him to count. She's like doing it in a way that's like, I mean, I think it's funny and it makes for good reading, but in terms of an actual situation, nah, it's kind of like pushing him, you know? I don't know. But at a certain point, if he's being unrelenting, I don't know. I guess maybe she had to. Hard to say. Hard to say. Taylor redirects her attention to the 9-year-old who is proud to show off his counting to 100 skills. Taylor starts carting the murdered rats out on the backs of roaches, fudging it a bit to have the last rats exit the building at the child's reaching of 100. Vic says, if someone said that to me, I would punch them. Turning to the dad, I told him, your rat problem is dealt with, and nearly all of the bugs are gone. Some of my swarm will remain so I can keep an eye out for any future infestations, but you won't see them. Now, if you still want to swing at me, I'm okay to go a round or two. No powers. His mouth twisted in a scowl, but he didn't move to attack me. And Vic points out, Taylor, this is not the time to admit you're big brothering this guy and his family. Taylor confirms with Sierra which of the family members was asking for help. She indicates the mother. Taylor, anti-ally as always, loudly asks the mother if her work is satisfactory. The woman thanks her and Taylor rolls her eyes at finally getting some fucking thanks around here. Taylor gives her instructions on how to sterilize the building, but the woman admits that they don't have access to any of the resources. They don't even have running water. They've only been drinking rainwater and are almost out of propane. Taylor empathizes with the woman and briefly hopes her dad's situation was better. Taylor commands Sierra to get this family and everyone in her territory to receive supplies ASAP. Vic said, TMI Taylor, oh my fucking god. And pulls out the single quoted word Tupperware here, which I found funny. Taylor even arranges for a doctor to come check on these rat-infested families. Not families that have been living in a rat-infested building. Rat-infested families. The woman exclaims that they would be able to pay her back, or they won't be able to pay her back for this, which Taylor easily dismisses. Although I think it does get to Taylor that people always think she's running a protection racket on them. I think that really, bothers her in her core. Even if she doesn't mention it every time, it sort of builds. You feel it whenever she's reviewing kind of how people see her and her actions that make her feel like she's a villain. You know, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so we get this quote again. Thank you, she said. Again, I feel bad for feeling the way I did, but I thought her gratitude was a little muted for what I was giving her. Taylor for real wants this bitch to be on her knees begging. Right as Taylor goes to leave, Gru arrives and makes a snip about Taylor's new extermination business. Gru quickly and accurately points out that the dad character, who's clearly not thankful at all. Gru clocks the toxic masculinity this guy is sort of emitting, and he can tell that he felt emasculated by Taylor coming in here and saving the day. Taylor suggests she recruit him, but Gru lets her know that this guy would be insufferable as an employee and undermine her the whole time. Taylor reminds Gru that he said he's not good with people, but Gru corrects that he's not good with girls specifically. No, I can talk to people, just not women, he said. um, but then he clarifies that he's just like good at reading these kinds of like shitty dudes that he met a lot of in the gyms. That's my own 2 cents. But back to the thing. Taylor 2012 feminisms him. Guys and girls aren't that different, but Gru 2023 mansplains back. The way he and Regent are attacking those in their territories, taking charge. And the way that Lisa and Taylor are being sweet and trying to help the people in their territories, that they gotta step it up and really be assholes. Bill says, so he's perfectly fine talking to normal people. That's what he's saying. Oh no! So let's see here. Where was I? So, Taylor presents that this might have more to do with their power sets than their genders, but Gru disagrees, and he thinks that they could both be a lot more aggressive, but they just aren't. And in fact, he's worrying about them not squashing the gangs in their territory and not making Coil any money. Taylor gets triggered that he's implying that she should make money off of protection rackets or drugs. And Taylor argues that what she's contributing to Coil's pride by making the city a better place is enough. Gru tells her that it's going to be a long process to get to the point that it will matter in Coil's eyes, and Taylor's starting to feel a bit aggrieved by Gru poking holes in the things she was saying, and feels way bad when she decides that he's actually right about how it won't be fast. Then she stammers out something about showing she's making headway, but stops when she's not even convincing herself. Gru seems to notice the change in Taylor's demeanor and apologizes for being hard on her. She says it's alright because she's been thinking too short-term up to now. Gru says that he had wanted to talk about less serious things today. Taylor is like, let's go chill at my place, just hang out all day and see what happens or whatever. Then he's all like, no, we gotta go to this villain meeting and talk about serial killers before they serial kill us. Oh hell. My minimal suspicions had been right. This wasn't a social call. They discuss for a minute, and Gru mentions the nomination of Regent and Hookwolf. He talks about how the PRT office got hit, but they don't know who was approached. When the PRT's mentioned, Taylor's first thought was Shadowstalker. Then he talks about Crawler attacking Coil's base, and that Coil isn't saying why if he knows. Important to note that it appears that Tattletale wasn't able to pick up on the fact that Rachel had encountered the Siberian. So that's going to be like the audience knows there's a bomb under the table type of thing. Gru says that they have to decide as a group if they should go. They're both concerned about it being a trap by Hookwolf or the whole thing getting crashed by the Nine themselves. Taylor thinks they'll miss crucial information if they don't go, though. So she asks what Dinah's numbers point to, and Gru says that her power is out of commission after Crawler's attack. Taylor says that they're flying blind with only Coil's power to back them up, then feels bad, a little guilty, when she has to pretend that she doesn't know what Coil's power is. But Coil and Tattletale both want the team to go. Skidmark is mentioned as a troublemaker who's volatile enough to break a truce and start fighting even at like a meetup like this where everyone else would attack them. Taylor gives an explanation of why they should go that ends with, plus, if the Nine attack, we can just get out of there lickety-split while they're all, the other people are getting killed. So Gru realizes that Taylor wants to go to the meeting, and she admits she does, for the rep and the info. Additionally, she reasons that there's nothing that guarantees the Nine won't attack while the other villains are holding the meeting. He sighed, and the sound was eerie, altered by his darkness. To think I used to like that you were hardcore serious about the supervillain thing. I'm not good at doing like a deeper voice, really. It always just sounds silly, so I just went with a normal voice. I also don't know how to make my voice sound like an eerie, echoey darkness. I think I could get a filter for that, probably, though. Taylor's feeling kind of sensy. She's thinking about her original motivations of joining the Undersiders after he says all that. And she asks him if he'd go to the meeting if it was up to just him. He says no, but says it's a group decision and that they need to prep their territories for their absence instead of arguing about if they should go or not. Because clearly, like, 3 of the other important figures, Coil, Tattletale, and Taylor all want to go, so they're gonna go. Then she says, when is the meeting? With a situation this critical, there's no time to waste. Tonight. So, yeah. And for some extra little chapter thoughts, I think this one's really good, getting us back into Taylor. I checked, and we miss about 3 days, I think. It feels a little long in Parahumans terms for like almost nothing to have happened for her and for her to be sending out the other 2 on the first time, but otherwise, like, things kind of don't line up. I think it was like the day they went to the mall, the next day, the day after that, the first 2 recruitments happened, the Hook Wolf, and then that night, Coil, and, or Armsmaster and, like, the Noel attempt by Crawler. And then the next day was the day when the Palanquin and Siberian Rachel and Amy Bonesaw stuff all happened. So it's like 3-day sequence like that. And I mean, maybe the blank day isn't there, but it seemed like it was upon close reading. The timeline is not like super tight, and I did compare this with the wiki timeline. That's why I think the 3 days is more supported. But I thought, like, the wiki stuff's been shaky in the past, so I kind of gotta go with my own reading of the text sometimes. But it does align in this case. But it's a little fuzzy, which I'm not super fan of, but I do think this, like, draws us back into her story after, 8 chapters away from her with no, like, only mention of her in the Rachel chapter, really. And then, let's see here. So, in good news, though, this means that Taylor managed to go for 3 days without getting into a fight. I mean, for her, at this stage in her life, pretty good. 3 days. Let's see. I think we'll just move on to 12.2. So, it's that very night, and the Undersiders are on 2 boats that Coil's people dropped off for them in the lake that was created during the Leviathan attack, when he did that big, like, fissure and sunk a huge swath of downtown. Gru's driving a boat with Bitch and the dogs, including Bastard, and Tattletale is driving a boat with the other 3. It's sneaky, but in the chapter it's never mentioned that Imp is there, even though she is. Taylor's like, mentions specifically Gru and Bitch on the one, and then says, Tattletale was driving the other boat with the rest of us. She's gonna later on in the chapter compare Aisha to, like, Aisha's on the favorable end of the comparison, but still not great. It's to Squealer, and aside from that, she can't tell that Imp is there, but she's just there and she never turns off her power. So since it's an automatic on power, no one notices her. I don't think anyone there has a way to sense her, but I'm not fully sure. Unless Othala is giving someone heightened, like, alternate senses, basically. Which I don't think was probably happening. Hard to say. So I don't think anyone knew Imp was there. But I think that's clever when they do this kind of thing, because they're gonna reveal that in a couple chapters. Be like, yeah, Imp stayed behind when we all left, so is gathering more information, and I just think it's just so cool. We need more cool Aisha moments, and to point them out, because they're constantly happening, but they're secret. Thinking back on her life, Skitter feels sure that she'd been on a boat at some point, like her parents taking her on the ferry when she was a toddler, when it was still active, but she can't actually remember ever being on a boat. The little motorboats that they're using are the speedy kind that skim and bounce across the top of the water and turn with a hand-operated rudder. Skitter is loving this experience. She likes all the physical sensations of riding the boat. It's like riding the dogs, but less strenuous, and there's no small primal fear that the boat will bite her face off. And then I put some notes for myself here. Maybe there should be, boat-based version of Mock Show where speedboats turn into sharks. I need Taylor to be more paranoid about every little thing. Skitter's able to feel calm as she's finally in a situation where there's nothing she can do in the moment to advance her goals. So she can finally just take a moment to herself and breathe. As they go, Skitter's able to notice Tattletale's better at driving the boat than Gru, which she finds amusing. I felt like this might have been a way to subtly show her lingering feelings after the conversation they had in 12.1, but I wasn't sure if other people read it that way. But it just felt like she was still upset after talking to Gru then, and kind of, bad at driving compared to Tattletale. But then I pulled this quote that I thought was good. Because, it's indicative of something bad in a way, but it's also, like, good that Taylor's worried about it. From time to time, I was finding myself in a strange emotional state. As I stayed alert for it, I was able to catch those moments, try to pick them apart for what they were. So she says that without actually picking apart that moment for what it is. But she is at least cognizant of her own emotions enough to be trying to monitor them and figure out, like, what's going on, because she knows she's bad at recognizing her own emotions. So that's kind of cool. I think it's a good character moment. The high-end motor whirred, and the boat bounced over the waves, the wind and water getting in my hair, all while we headed into the most ridiculously dangerous and unpredictable situation we'd been in for weeks. It was one of those moments I felt almost calm. Classic Skitter. So, reflecting on her past, she thinks of her ever-present anxiety about every aspect of her life. She seemingly never had moments of mental peace between things. All of this before she became a cape, and at this point, now that she's been doing this cape stuff, all her past concerns seem a bit trivial to her in hindsight. And yet, she's able to feel calm now, even though she's heading into this very dangerous situation. It's almost as if she loves death. So, they get a light signal from their destination, and Regent signals Mac with their own set of signals. Gru slows down as they get closer. Tattletale looks like a badass driving right onto this partially submerged roof of a building. Gru does essentially the same thing, but is cautious and thus not awesome. There are 3 teams already there: the Chosen, Faultline's crew, and the Pure. Skitter is able to tell the first 2 teams were attacked because they have indicative injuries of glass cuts and burns, respectively. The merchants arrive on a mega boat that's crazy loud and bright and stuff. But it's got a tinker device that cancels out noise and light it makes at a certain range away from the boat. They have to be assholes, though, so they have to drive the biggest, loudest thing they can. You know, that's who they are. Yep, sorry. That is totally my bad. I missed the scene. Vic says, I almost drew Squealer's dumb boat. Yeah, I'm going to give the art a second, and I am going to just mute my mic and try and clear my throat. So, yes. Look at the art. Look at it go. It's just going wild. You got Taylor hair, you got Tattletale, you got hand-operated rudder. You know, it's got it all. Vale says, my favorite thing in this art is how the bugs look like they're working. I'm assuming you meant the 12-1, yeah. There's just something in the way that the bugs are drawn that makes them look engaged. And then Vic says, they're working boys. I really like this one. I like the dark color palette that ends up getting used at the end. It's basically like mostly this, but a little lighter because, you know, things get filled in. But, you know, I like the contrasts of, like, when things happen. Because, like, this is at night, but a lot of the scenes that feel like they're at night are weirdly daytime scenes. Like, even though it was all dark, the Leviathan scene happened, like, as the sun was rising. And, so, like, by the end of that fight, like, daylight was sort of shining through after Leviathan fell through, and like that's so weird. It's good to remember the lighting of a scene. I like to really, I don't know. There's certain aspects of scenes that my brain really latches onto, and like the lighting, the temperature, the noise level that I expect. All of these things are sort of really important to setting the mood, I guess. Yeah. Vale says, also, speaking overall for all the art, I absolutely love and appreciate how the scenes are specific to each chapter and are not anything anyone else has done. Yeah. Vic says thanks, and then William likes to see little moments that might be forgotten. Yeah, no, absolutely, because there's so many things that could slip through the cracks, and like we could do like only the big iconic scenes, but like in a way for a book that kind of is obscure like this, if we don't make art of a scene, maybe it just never ever gets made, and that'd be kind of a bummer. So like, yeah, it's great. Anyway, so sort of getting back to this, I gotta find my place again. Yeah, so after a bit of arguing and so forth about their loudness, they talk about they have the noise canceling tinker device. They talk about the fight a few days ago between Faultline's crew and the merchants, because of course that was only 3 days ago. And things settle down a bit. Then the travelers get there riding on Genesis, being a weird serpent turtle thing. And finally Coil arrives. The teams have more or less formed a ring around this partially submerged roof of a building sticking out of the water. Um, and it's got to be a little uncomfy to be standing on a slanted roof for an extended period of time, but you know. Now the meeting can begin. But wait, there's more, says Hookwolf. Unbeknownst to the other teams, Hookwolf had invited someone else. After a signal is sent out by Othala, giving Victor pyrokinesis, and he does some flameos to signal, then Purity's ready to start laying into them with death lasers for betrayal. The fighting gets delayed by talking for just long enough for Miss Militia to show up with Weldon Clock Blocker in tow, to show up and rep the PRT. Vale says, that reminds me of my one true regret in life, not becoming a billionaire who could... Or one true regret in life, not becoming a billionaire who could fund making Worm into a perfect anime. Vic says, same. Well, yeah, I mean, if I could spend... if I could genie wish a piece of art into existence, it would definitely be a Worm anime. Like no joke. Well, if I had to pick just one pair of humans, it would definitely be Ward, but whatever. That's not important. It's okay for the second one to be better than the first one. So now with Miss Militia there, the meeting really begins. Vale says, Ward is just season 2. Oh my god. Season 1, the longest season. The audiobook for Worm is 3 times as long, I think, as like the first... I don't think Game of Thrones was over when I looked this up. I think it had like 6 or 7 seasons, but it was like 60 hours of content at the time, and I was like, oh, that means listening to Worm takes triple the time. Yeah. Season 1, 102 episodes. Yeah, they'd have to be like TV hours probably. Like HBO series, anime episodes. But and then season 2, Ward, 122 episodes. Oh, Vale. If only. But Hookwolf says that they have a problem aside from the Slaughterhouse 9. Very dickishly. Coyle prompts him to go on, and Hookwolf tells the group that the Undersiders and the Travelers have teamed up, and now that both teams have teamed up, their team controls the whole city. Yeah, I mean, I made that sentence confusing on purpose, and then I confused myself and said it wrong, so it worked. Miss Militia is like, this isn't news. And Gru nods to Trickster, who says that they didn't know about the 9 being in the city until after they had already planned these territory grabs. At this point, Purity is like, whoa, you're saying that you're actually doing a city takeover? Something like that, Gru responded. Skitter thinks that this whole thing might have been set up by Hookwolf just for this moment, to turn the other teams against the Travelsiders, which is, unfortunately, the best thing I could come up with to call them, so that is why we'll be calling their unit. Miss Militia clarifies that they're only there to deal with the topic of the Slaughterhouse 9, and they need to table that other stuff for now. But Hookwolf insists on making it topic 1 of 2, and not moving on to the important stuff until he's turned everyone against the Travelsiders. Skidmark is easily won over by these grievance politics style arguments, and Purity seems like she's right there with him. The other teams keep offering convoluted solutions, and our champs are like, no, that's dumb, what are you even talking about? Coyle comes in with, guys, I've got bad news. He's like, guys, you're gonna want to see this. We've got to kill Jack Slash, or the world will end. Don't ask me how I know. Then the others don't believe him. But Weld, having put all this together with his incredible stat points all going into investigating skills instead of social skills, is able to figure out that Coyle has captured Dinah Alcott, who had shown clear signs of having powers, then was kidnapped shortly afterward. And she's like a high-profile person because, as we will later learn, she's the mayor's niece. But all of this based on articles that he had read previously and like other case files. Coyle bullshits about how he's actually Professor X to Dinah's Jean Grey. It's not a big deal, guys. Give me a break, is basically his argument for why he's keeping her in captivity. And I mean, from his dumb story, he's like, oh, well, she came to me so I could train her. It's not my fault. Which is, wow, very believable. Hookwolf says that it makes more sense now how they were always one step ahead on battle plans against the E-88. And after they established that they generally believe that they have to kill Jack Slash, Hookwolf is like, okay, given that we really need to talk about this, given that news, we really need to talk about the city takeover thing. It's amazing how he takes the news that makes the important issue more important and somehow turns it into a bigger reason to go back to the, like, basically bullshit grievance that he has of like, I can't believe that these villains are doing the literal exact same thing I do. But just on a bigger scale. So Coyle is no fucking help and throws them under the bus. Skidmark and Purity are on the same page as the other two. The Traveler Siders never tip off that they're in league with Coyle by messing up and reacting, so that's good. But Trickster tells them all that it's easy enough for them to say this when they don't lose anything and the Travel Siders lose a bunch. Skidder thinks about how this will mean it will take longer to save Dinah. Also, like, it's a good point from Trickster. Like, the others don't say, we'll give up all of our territory. So, yeah. And then we've got, no, I murmured, barely audible to myself. I could see some of the other Undersiders. Gru, Tattletale, and Bitch turned their heads a tiny fraction in my direction. No, Gru echoed me, his voice carrying across the rooftop. No? Coyle asked, his voice sharp with surprise. Gru says they'll help fight the Nine, but they won't give up territory. Trickster nods in agreement. Purity is a petulant child. Faultline cuts in, being a real hypocrite asshole. You can't put money, power, and control at a higher priority than our collective survival. Cut to 1 minute later. We're mercenaries. We can't take a job without pay. Even a job as important as this. Just like, come the fuck on. Vale had said, why not call them the Underlers? Underlers. I think my pronunciation just now is a reason enough to not call them the Underlers. I don't think it's sustainable for me. Travel Cider is just very easy to say. Anyway, moving on from words I'm bad at saying. Trickster and Gru say over and over again that they can help to fight, but the territory stays theirs. Skidder can tell that Hookwolf isn't as good as Kaiser was at manipulation, but also that it doesn't matter because the others are predisposed to be suspicious of them. And, Greg says, you're missing Coyle in the Alliance. It should be the Crabble Siders. Hell yeah. So I do love Crabble Siders, and when we talk about them with a unit with Coyle, I will remember to call them that. I will endeavor to remember, let's say. But given that they are opposed to Coyle in this moment, and only secretly with him, they can't openly be called the Crabble Siders. But man, we gotta use that for basically Arc 12, 13, and 14 for sure. Let's see here. So, While people argue more, Skitter appeals to Miss Militia that they have people they need to defend from Hookwolf and, like, the other white supremacists. Which gets Miss Militia to suggest another plan that is ridiculous and unfeasible. She also admits to the group that Mannequin was after Armsmaster to clear things up a little bit. The other villain teams decide the compromise Miss Militia wants won't work anyway, and Coil pays Faultline's fee. Miss Militia says that the villains can't attack civilians or the truce is over, but for now they will leave the villains alone with the free reign to fight the Slaughterhouse 9, in the open. The teams in the Alliance all have their leaders come up and handshake and so forth in the middle. And then the heroes stand in guarding position to keep people from attacking the Travel-Siders. Gru says they're making a mistake, then Hookwolf ejects the Travel-Siders from the meeting. Tattletale asked, "You won't let us stick around to discuss the Nine, who they attacked, and what our overall strategies should be? Even if we aren't working together as a single group?" She paused, looking deliberately at Faultline. "You know the smart thing to do?" She was met only with cold stares and crossed arms. So then they get on their boats and zoom away. Final chapter thoughts. To me, this chapter was a really good meetup chapter. I think it does a lot better version of the Somers Rock bar scene. And I think this is kind of like, it shows Wildbow's growth during the story in like a really concrete way to me. Because this is a really similar scene to the meeting about dealing with the ABB. But I just think it's a lot more, like everybody it's just a little more on point in a way that's like hard for me to articulate because it's kind of subtle, but he gets it now. And like obviously he will continue to grow as a writer throughout this, so I'll keep pointing out things like this. And I still think the Somers Rock scene is good. It's just like there's a lot of time just saying people's names and kind of first introducing them. And again, like that chapter introduces 19 new parahumans, and like a couple side characters at the bar or whatever, and like the idea of what these groups are. Whereas this chapter has that chapter as a foundation to like just go into it. We know who Fault Line's crew are. We know who the Travelers are. We know who all of the former Empire 88 people are. We know who the merchants are. And Coil, we like know a lot more about, and then we know the heroes from their own perspectives. We've seen from the perspective of all three of the present heroes. So, like, we understand these characters a lot, given the foundation of their various interludes, the previous interactions they've had. They've teamed up with some of these people. They've fought some of these people. It's pretty great. This is like one of those, I don't know, central kind of staples of superhero stories where they do a really good job of having the characters interact with more than just like a problem with Silver Age X-Men, which I'm pretty familiar with and I've read all the issues of, is that it seems like every enemy is disconnected unless they join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. But like other than that like specific case, they just kind of are one-off villains of the week, and it doesn't seem like people know each other, even though there are very few total people with powers. And it does seem like they would kind of ping off each other and interact just because of how notable it is that they're one of like a few dozen total humans with superpowers that are very, very powerful and noticeable. But whatever. I guess it's not important. But this kind of story like shows that if you just like tie it together, You get a much more satisfying feeling. Anyway, moving on from shitting on Silver Age X-Men. I can do it. I'm a fan. I love it in spite of all that. So, I guess we'll move on to the arc stuff. This is a good opening to the arc. We kind of reset to 0 and recalibrate with Taylor. Things are a little tense with the fact that the 9 are here, but like it's actually kind of calm, like Taylor feels at the start of 12.2, is I feel like the atmosphere of these first 2 chapters, and I would say even extending into the third of the arc. And then it does a good job of like first we're setting the board with some pieces where Gru tells Taylor, we're going to go to this meeting. Well, I mean, that's not the way the conversation goes down, but you know what I mean. And then once they're at the meeting, we get kind of the general shape of things going forward and big character interactions. And then we've got to deal with the aftermath already. It's a little different from a normal arc in that a lot of the normal arcs will set up more direct, like, what the conflict of the arc will be. And we know we'll be dealing with the Slaughterhouse 9, but, like, we don't have any idea, really, from these 2 chapters what that's going to mean. Not that we always have to, or that we always do, but a lot of times it's more clear what's going to happen in the chapters to come, and I don't feel like there's no obvious lead for like what's going to happen next. Vale says, or the Undersoilers. Yeah, the Undersoilers. What a great name. I'm sure that they would love being called that. It's like what their enemies call them, maybe. God, that's pretty good. Is there any other arc stuff I want to discuss? I guess not. I like the general, like, them sprinkling in the setup of their territories and stuff, and like throughout it kind of discussing and thinking about their progress and whatever. And I mean, it's a big reveal to the non-Travel-Siders characters. Oh no, they kind of took the whole city out from under us and we like literally didn't notice for 3 days. But in the words of Miss Militia, so what? So moving on to the characters section, we got the girls first. We've got Sierra and Charlotte, and I think that Charlotte is obviously much more hesitant to work for Taylor than Sierra is, and Sierra has a better opinion of Taylor than Charlotte does, and I think that has a lot to do with, like, obviously, Taylor blowing up at her when they were still at the mall, before they had been in the big, grand fight. And, she's probably freaked out by the idea that they might get attacked by, various people, given that they were already in a big knife fight. So she has understandable concerns, and has the, intelligent decision to get a weird Spider-Person mask instead of, just be totally exposed. Because, I mean, she is working directly for a criminal. And if nothing else, they are tax avoiding. So, you don't want to connect the dots for the investigators. You want to make them do at least a little legwork. And then Sierra seems pretty up for this stuff. I don't know. Uh, Charlotte was at least sticking up for Taylor though against the dad. She was kind of how to say not effective, but like on wholeheartedly on Taylor's side. So that was good to see. Um, I think Taylor's not appreciative enough of that, and I mean, obviously, she's not appreciative enough of the woman either, who has like obvious concerns about like, I don't know, you're like a bank robber, and like, you also put bugs in that guy's nose. Um, so I mean, not that she knows about that, but I would assume that generally the view of villains is not all too high. She's not one of those villain with good PR tropes. And I guess that brings us around to the family. These are some sad refugees, and the probably sadder given that they have like a shitty dad for the household. Head of the household type of guy. And as mentioned by Vic's little thing, Taylor is not doing the family any favors. Um, she's like making this probably abuser guy more angry, which in the way abuse plays out usually makes them take it out on their existing victims. So she's really like just kind of being a piece of shit. The way that she directed things toward the mom, I mean. Let's see here. Greg says, I'd be concerned if I were a party member of the putting bugs in people's noses party. I didn't think they'd put bugs in my nose. Yeah, exactly. It's a problem. Now that they're in my nose. Let's see here. So talked about the family. And I mean, these are like side characters that we'll see again in this arc, so we'll get someone we can relate back to out of the people who live in Taylor's territory. I think RJ is the only one of them that's named. I don't quite remember. I think the mom and dad are both unnamed. But RJ can count to 100, so pretty smart kid. Anyway, so moving on to Gru. Gru is kind of like, you're bad at this, and you should be attacking people more. But like, Taylor took over her whole territory, and I don't really know what he's talking about. Like, other people aren't doing gang activity in her territory, which I guess isn't good enough. She's supposed to actively seek out all the people. And I mean, the thing is, she's not, like, not going to do that. She just hasn't done it yet. I don't know. I think he's being unreasonable. She's the only one who's taken over her whole territory, like, right away. And, I do think she's building up goodwill with a lot of people, or at least putting out good PR, where when people talk about her on the net later, even though like some people leave her territory, etc., the idea people have of her from the fact she was giving out food, water, and like various other supplies, like the propane burners to boil the water and stuff. Those things like really go to people having like a more accepting view of her in the future. A concept that they'll talk about a lot in Ward is the idea that the public perception and people's actions when they're, viewed by others, they always ripple out, and they're really important, even if it's to people that you're never going to actually meet again. Because, like, as a cape, you are inherently a public figure unless you're, like, totally under the radar. So someone as high profile as Skitter, like, she knows that she has to, I mean, it's not why she's doing it, but she does have to, like, publicly do a lot of things. So like she actually views this line of reasoning and uses it as a justification for cruelty later. But like I see it as one of her assets was like this era when she's like paying people well, helping people, which she'll continue to do. And like this is what people look at in her in-universe real world and be like, I don't know, like maybe we kind of forgive some of the stuff that she did. So you know, it's a lot of good setup for future stuff with her doing that. Oh, and she's thinking about how people perceive her. She doesn't put bugs on Genesis to avoid annoying a new ally, since she has no idea about Genesis's personality and stuff, and so she's doing pretty good at this whole team thing. Oh, I wrote. Oh wait, I forgot about Gru. So back to Gru. I also think it's funny that he's a worse driver than Tattletale, but my reasoning is that usually men are really convinced of their driving, and or the standard sexism is to be like women be bad at driving, but in this case it's just a little funny that it's reversed. And I mean, like, it's not even a car; it's like a boat. I think boats are even more like cars are sort of in our society more masculine specific than feminine specific, but boats feel like they're even more skewed in that direction. And I mean, this is just like coded by society. There's nothing actually masculine or feminine about cars or boats, just like, you know, the perceptions. And Gru does a really good job at the meeting, I think. So he wins us back with his good showing. And he and Trickster do really well together. Like they're in like perfect unison in this, I feel like. Greg says she specifically doesn't do it only because Genesis is Nakes. Yeah, totally Nakes. So moving on from Gru to Trickster, they both do a real good job in this meeting. They hold their own against everybody. They don't cave in. They don't lose their cool or anything at any point. So this is a praise to both of them, kind of universally on this performance. I don't think that I personally, to answer my own audience participation question, think they did a great job, and I couldn't think of a better way to have handled this situation. So, yeah, the twin leadership skills. Switching over to some other characters, we've got Rachel. She doesn't really say anything here, but she has Bastard, the half, the not quite a dog puppy. It's probably a wolf. I mean, I think later we learned that maybe it's like a half wolf, half dog thing, but I don't know how confirmed that is. But I think it's supposed to be like part of why her power adapts well, is that like Rolo was also like a mutt of the variety that's like not quite all dog. But what was I saying? So Bastard's there, and will continue to be in the like things, even though he's like a puppy. She's like training him from here forward, and she's being really careful with how she's training him, because she knows that he's gonna have a wilder nature than a normal dog, and is going to be more likely to be just violent, because like as far as she can tell, it's just a wolf, and like wolves are violent. I mean, you have to just be careful with them. Like if they're being raised to be around people, it just needs to be so specific, from what I understand. So given that she has superpowers, I'm sure it'll be fine. That's what I say about every superpower in this book. Let's see here. Who else we got? We got Imp hiding the whole time. Love it. We've got Tattletale. She doesn't really say much in this meeting, but I think she gets in a pretty good dig at Fault Line. Like, even though she's rebuked, I think I come away from this interaction thinking, like, yeah, everyone on that roof aside from them is a moron. I mean, not really the heroes, because they don't really have a lot of sway there, but all of the villains who are like, you've got to leave, are fucking stupid. Like, they're so parahuman petty. Like, it's so classic parahuman to just be so petty, to be like, yeah, I know all of us are at the stakes of having fates worse than death, like possibly some of the worst ones, but, like, on the other hand, we don't like Tattletale, so, get out of here. That was my impression of a combination of Purity, Skidmark, Hookwolf, and Fault Line. It's a terrible combination, person. It's no Tuvix. But then who else we got? Regent doesn't say a goddamn thing. He does the light thing, and that is it. The other travelers don't say anything. The Chosen just stand around like, oh, we're badasses. The Pure do the same exact thing. The Fault Line's crew, same, but they feel a little less. I never feel as much enmity toward them, even if they're doing the literal exact same thing as these other bastards. And then Coil. Oh boy. Coil is really putting them in a spot. So they have to not be in the Alliance and not get backed up by Coil at all. And he's going to, in fact, speak on behalf of them being ousted so that it will... Oh yeah, my shitty combo person also includes Coil, if I didn't say that. So he is fully in favor of the removal of them from the Alliance, which is very annoying. And something they'll have to work around. And later he'll be like, I'm sorry, did you expect me to just give up the fact that I was doing blah blah blah? And it's like, there was probably a way where you could have, ridden the line without it. I think he's just an asshole. Figure it out. Fault Line, huge hypocrite. I mean, I already called it out, but geez. Just fuck off. And I think that's kind of everybody. Oh yeah, everything else is kind of covered in the powers knowledge. I did want to mention Gregor, starting off the powers knowledge thing. Only Gregor showed skin. The barnacle-like growths of spiral shells that covered his skin had multiplied on one side of his body, until there was more shell than skin. The skin around it was crimson enough that it stood out in the gloom. It looked tender. I thought that was neat. That when he gets burned, his barnacle acne gets worse. I mean, not like good for him, just like a neat detail. Let's see here. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I loved the feeling of the wind in my hair, the slight disturbances the boat bounced on the short waves. I'd almost think I'd been destined to fly, based on how thoroughly I enjoyed myself, and that it was only bad luck that I'd gotten other powers instead. I know that immediately after this she mentions having had a bad time flying with Laser Dream, but her arm was broken and she was fighting for her life, and the city was being destroyed. Taylor fucking loves flying, and we'll get to see that in a number of situations throughout the rest of the story. Whenever she's not in a fight and she gets the opportunity to fly, she seems to actually really enjoy it, just generally. So, yeah. Greg says, I appreciate Gregor showing some skin. He's keeping the fan service quotient high. Exactly. Well, he's being a little coy about it, covering up just a tiny bit with some barnacles. Um, Another thing I pulled out. It was the size of a small yacht, but it looked outfitted for war, with what looked like Tesla coils crossed with old school TV antenna fueling its forward momentum and sending arcs of electricity dancing over the waves in its wake, as though it was riding on the current of lightning. Various guns had been placed haphazardly around the upper deck, each manned by a merchant. Skidmark stood at the highest deck with Squealer the driver. Skidder thinks that Squealer basically has the opposite Tinker perk as Arms Master, where she can always add more and go big, whereas he can always condense to save space. I also think that if it was literally any parahumans aside from the merchants, this would be pretty badass. But the merchants just suck so much that I hadn't even considered how badass it is until this reading, when I was just like, there's 7 or 8 Tinker guns and they're just pointing them in all directions, riding a Mad Max Fury Road thing but on the water with a Tesla coil powering it. That's badass. But then I'm like, but the fucking merchants are there. Vale says he does that on purpose so he can say his classic catchphrase, "Shiver me barnacles." Classic Gregor catchphrase. We already talked about it, but I pulled the actual quote. I could have used my bugs to get a feel for the shape Genesis had taken, but my habit was generally to place bugs on clothing where they wouldn't be noticed. And Genesis was effectively naked. And then I thought this part was actually pretty cool. Knight stepped out of the lake between our parked boats onto the roof, water streaming from her cloak. Just the fact that she was either running at the bottom with her weird form or swimming in some way. She was just like a death machine under the water. And then as far as other world building stuff, I thought that this villain meetup was just a really good representation of what that is supposed to look like. And we'll see other ones throughout the story, but this is a pretty good single city example of an emergency meeting, even though they don't have the normal villain bar. We will see other emergency meetings. Believe you me. Vale says parahumans are scary. Yeah, with their catchphrases. I mean, catchphrases are horrifying. The audience participation, I think. Well, is there anything else I want to... I guess we learned that the lake is essentially persistent and that it's still got buildings collapsed down far enough that you can drive a boat onto their roof. But anyway, moving on. Do you think there's a better way the Undersiders could have acted in the meeting to advance their goals? And let's read the things. Greg had said, the Undersiders are stuck playing defense in the meeting, and it's a mistake. Going on the offense puts other options on the table. Hookwolf was nominated for the 9, and any plan he proposes is suspect. And he's trying to get not 1, but 2 large and powerful groups of parahumans to sit it out? Yeah, nice try. Propose that he's working for the 9 already, and he should be excluded from any alliance to stop him from stabbing the group in the back. Now he's stuck arguing against that instead of attacking you. With luck, Coil will play peacemaker, and you can concede to a ceasefire to stop the 9. Which is what you actually wanted. Yeah, that's a good point. That would have been a good way to do it. They would have had to jump in. Instead of just saying no, they would have before all the proposed deals, all the nonsense, unfeasible plans, which they don't even sound like they would work. Before they start throwing out those ideas, then you'd have to like get in with that like really quick thing. But I think it would be really. I think that maybe it would give Coyle the opportunity to not throw them under the bus. I mean, I still think he could have done a better job doing that, but maybe it would have gotten him to the threshold where he thought that it wouldn't be as suspicious. It's hard to say exactly. Coyle's a real bastard, but I can see what you're saying, and I think it's got a good chance of working if they had gone that route. So yes, I changed my answer to I copied off Greg's homework. Vale says, I think the Coyle undermining them, or with Coyle undermining them, it puts them in a position where they can't win. I think of anything they should have done. Coyle's the real problem there, and they have no defense to it. That's how I had felt initially, but Greg's argument was very compelling to me. Because Coyle, they're already at the point of saying no to the deal when Coyle throws them under the bus, right? Or am I misremembering the order of events? Let's see here. Okay, so Coyle's response caught me off guard. Yeah, I think Greg's thing would have worked because what you would have wanted to do is drop it in before Coyle had even talked about Dinah. You'd want to get it in like kind of way earlier before they talk about the first plan to offload them, and like Trickster and I still think Trickster and Gru were on the same page, and given the position they were in, I think they did really well. I don't think that they like super fucked this up. I think that like it probably would have been like a weird tense alliance, and the fact that they don't end up in this is fine because, not to be too spoily, but the Trickster will have a trick up his sleeve later where he basically baits the other groups into attacking the 9, and then the Undersiders fight with that going on. And it's like, I don't know. You could say like they'd be coordinated if they hadn't done that, but like the other groups are kind of like they never want to listen to what the Undersiders have to say, and I don't think that they would have let them give as much good input as they should have, because like none of the other teams believe or could admit this if they believe it, but the Undersiders are just better at like team fights. They might not always have the powers advantage, but they're better at coming up with plans, and once they've come up with the plans, they're very fucking good at executing them. A lot of these other teams kind of just fight. Like, they just wild out, but, like, I feel like the Undersiders actually, like, come up with strategies to take down other teams. So, it may have been counterproductive to be part of the overall alliance and spend more time fighting with them than you're spending with the group that actually, like, meshes with the Travel-Siders. Or, what, I gotta say it right. The Crabble-Siders. I need to type that out so that I don't, because I'm going to put that in my next thing. Crabble-Siders. My God. Yeah, I guess let's see. I think that's the only two answers. And then the question for next week is for 12.3, but is kind of broad and can be from any chapter. I'm posting it now. What's your favorite cute moment between the Travelers and the Undersiders? It can be from any chapter. And, maybe use spoiler tags depending, but just use your best judgment. I trust you guys, so It's fine. And yeah, I think that's all kind of. So I am going to start up the music. Oh, that's bad of me. I don't know if I switched to the fully static image. I think I left the slightly pixelated version of the image up there. Whoops. But let us outro this episode. As always, the Discord link can be found in the description of the stream or the channel, and the music for this section of the story that's used in this week is Infestation by ScarlettXOX, who can be found on Twitch at twitch.tv/Scarlet_Rogue. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. Full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also, of course, the fan-made audiobook of the entire work, audioworm.rain-online.org. Thanks, and I am going to let the song play. Oh, looks like people are saying goodbye. Thanks as always. By the way, I'm going to ping about the Pale book group tomorrow. We're planning to start it soon. Cool. Yep. I was going to ask you about the details, but I had not remembered to get around to it. Greg says, bye!